Okay. Um, to I think conclude this discussion or yeah, PowerPoint, whatever. I want to talk or explain. It looks like a lot, but it really isn't. Some parts that modify immersions. That could be in a positive way or in a negative way. It totally depends. The most powerful modifier in a positive way is my imagination. So I can play a game with, I don't know, 16 colors and very bad graphics if if the writing is good. And that hasn't to be the writing in the game. It could also be writing in the manual and stuff like that. If that is good, I get really fast immersion into the game, and I want to know more and try to find stuff out. So it's the better the graphics I have in the game, it's more. It's not as easy to get into it. I have the feeling.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I think I often use the reference of Ico.
Yeah.
So Ico on PlayStation 2 again, I think that was, and by modern standards, those are very low poly characters. They're probably a few hundred, if not a few thousand, maybe polygons to bring these characters to life. And the world is quite repetitive in terms of the blocks that you're running around, but they're assembled nicely, and the way the characters move, it brings their characters to life. You can understand the personalities of them. So the visuals don't have to be perfect if you can connect with it in a different way.
One of the games I got really immersed in later in my life, because as a kid I didn't understand the game, was Red Storm Rising. I'm not sure if you know that, because it's a very old game. You know the Tom Clancy?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a book from him, Red Storm Rising. And Sid Meier sat down with him and made a game about it. It's called Red Storm Rising. And you play a submarine, a nuclear submarine, and the graphics are very crude. This looks very good, but this isn't the most part of the game looks like this. So it's just a tactical display you steer upon. But when I made the replay for my YouTube channel, I got immersed into this game. Unbelievable. I was sweating in my seat, staring at two dots and sonar pings in the background. I was really immersed. I was nearly shouting to my CO and reload the torpedoes. And yeah, it is a really, really immersive game for me, but it nearly has no graphic, but the systems behind it are very, very interesting. Of course, it's a relatively early Sid Meier game, but there is so much behind the screens, and it's very, very deep simulated. So this is a simulation, but it doesn't look like one because you are just staring at tactical displays. But there is so much with detection, counter detection, and how sound works in different media, because water has a different temperature, and there are sound barriers with where the temperatures change and stuff like that. So sonar works differently in different depths and stuff like that. You can have cavitation, and that's so immersive, but the graphics isn't that good. So yeah, the imagination does wonders.
I think one of the most important things, one of the most important jobs in video games these days is interface design and understanding, because every single thing you see on the screen is interface. It is telling you something about the digital world you're in, whether it's like the blue frame around the screen that we're in the moment. It's like, yeah, it is a kind of military industrial kind of situation. This is the setting of the environment you're in. Here's the interactions you might expect in that kind of environment, to the colors of the font, the style of the font itself. And obviously now, if you were to make this game now, you would probably not be doing all of this with just that list of numbers on the side of the screen there. We'd be doing this with visuals, we'd be doing this with different systems. So finding ways to make that kind of simulation graphically appealing, but still as accessible and still as complex. And one of the things that I've seen several teams do is try to make games which are very complex, realistic simulations, but then have insufficient interface designs to express the complexity of what's happening in a way that the player can respond to.
Yeah, absolutely. I rant often about interfaces, often about modern games, but yeah, this is the remake. Not official remake because of the license and stuff like that. But this is essentially the modern version of the game, and I didn't get immersed into it. And mostly it's not just because of the interface, but also about the NPCs. The AI isn't that good as in the old game, and it shines. It really shines. So it really gets boring fast. After 3 or 5 hours, you know what the AI will do, and yeah.
It could be this interesting thing with AI in video games. There's actually there's this thing that actually stupider AI is often more fun to play against. It's either there's this artificial stupidity rather than artificial intelligence, which is actually really enjoyable. And you've got different ways of doing this. You can either do it that the AI is stupid and does random stuff, which actually can be really interesting to play against because you don't see it coming, or it's incredibly stupid and does very predictable things, and just learning that kind of rhythm of the AI becomes very satisfying to play against. And then again, this is kind of that thing I was talking about earlier with kind of flow and ritual. That sometimes, like the Black was a game as a shooter, first-person shooter. Again, I think PlayStation 2 era.
Yeah.
And you had these enemies with these helmets on, and they'd go and take cover, and they'd pop their head up, and you knew that about 3 seconds after taking cover, they are going to pop their head up, and you are going to be able to get a headshot, and the helmet will pop off and go ping, and they'll die, and it'll be really satisfying. And you know, after the 7th time that you've just done a headshot on their buddy, their next mate would not do that again. But that wouldn't be fun. So the AI being stupid was actually much more enjoyable than AI being smart. And on the contrary kind of side of this, an AI playing to the best of its ability, an AI being incredibly intelligent, would be really just not fun to play against. It would either completely annihilate you, it would do pincer movements, it would kill you in 3 shots. You know, there's a lot of ways actually to make AI really bad. And one of the easiest ways of doing it is to make it smart. And I can see that, you know, a game like this is going to rely a lot on how random or how predictable the AI may become. And I can easily see that a more modern developer might actually make mistakes that perhaps forced by the restrictions of old hardware, maybe Sid Meier didn't make the first time around.
I'm not sure. I have the feeling that the AI from Sid Meier was more strict to actual rules of engagement at the time, and this is just, yeah, following some patterns. That's, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It's complex.
Yeah, it's very complex. So the second biggest modifier for me is a friend, not just a friend online. Sometimes that too, but a friend sitting beside me. We can talk about it, we can play together. And that was always a big plus for me because we added up, or immersion added up, or multiplied more, not just added up, but multiplied. And that was a very fun experience.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah, I definitely that kind of social immersion, that sense of connection through the game.
Yeah. So you probably get a social immersion from a game that hasn't really much social immersion built in because you are sitting there with a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a very easy way of getting it, really, because
Yeah,
you've also automatically got that sense of connection already there.
yeah. Also, a plus, or the older you get, a more a negative modifier is knowledge and experience. You talked about the princess in the castle. I saved the world so many times. I'm tired of it. I don't care
Mm.
about the world or the existence or stuff like that.
Yeah, let the world burn now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like I've done my fair share of annihilating alien races.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Right,
and
right.
and the thing is, I will still do it. You know, I still have a good time playing Destiny, but I'm having a good time playing Destiny because the guns feel really good and I'm
Yeah,
playing with my friend.
yeah, yeah. Right.
I don't care about the enemies at all.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Also, of course, knowledge and experience. If a game portrayed something or some part, let's take hacking, for example. I know my way around computer systems. Maybe I hacked one or two in my early days. And I know hacking a computer system is not like pressing a button on a phone or flying numbers and stuff like that. So that pulls me instantly out of the immersion of the video game. And that can happen with many things, like a car not feeling right, driving the car right,
Mm.
not feels right, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the older you get, the more negative this modifier will get. Of course, because you have the experience of the real thing, you tried something in real, and as a kid, you never knew, you don't know what it feels like, or you don't know how hacking should look like, or something like that.
Yeah. I always watch, well, both in films and in video games, and see people like climbing 200-foot cliffs, and I'm going, yeah, no, you just can't. You're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, on the other side of this is a personal interest in themes, mechanics, maybe settings, stories. So I like Flight Simulator, so that's automatically a great plus in my book if it's a flight simulator. But maybe you don't like Flight Simulator, so that's not a big plus that I have.
And
And
Western's boring. I don't
yeah,
know. I just never found what the Wild West very interesting.
yeah, right, stuff like that. So I don't like rom-coms or stuff like that. So I'm not into romantic comedies, and yeah. Also, a big plus in the early games of early days of video games was additional accompanying media. Like in the box, there was the manual, and often the manual, even if it was not that a complicated game, was fairly big. So there was background informations. There was a lot of informations about enemies and weapons or power-ups and stuff like that. Even Doom, which is very, very basic, and you don't have to read the manual, has I think 40-page manual with all the items described, with many of the monster described, with a little bit of background story and stuff like that. So there are also these manuals, but often there are some maps or handouts. There are also, in the early days, because you had to press a lot of buttons in some simulations, there was a card you could put over your keyboard where you can read which button press would do what and stuff like that. It's very immersive for me. Of course, if you're a fan of, I don't know, Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, a game about Lord of the Rings and Star Wars will immediately put you in because you're a fan of the IP, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's that sense of connection that you have. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I've been trying to remember the name of it for the time we've been talking, because there's a specific term for kind of this connection that you have with things, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah, there's an association we have, which brings an emotional value, an emotional weight that means you're more likely to like something if you've been associated with it before.
Right.
Name for it. There's a proper term. There's an academic term for this.
Yeah, I bet you will remember it when we.
Almost certainly. As soon as we stop recording, it'll come back to me.
Yeah. Also, I'm all about old games, old video games, and so nostalgia is obviously a big plus because, as you said, I was already invested into the game as a kid, and the memories as a kid are impregnated on my brain. So I a game what I loved as a kid, I still love today. Even when I play it today and think, maybe it's not that good, the mechanics are not that interesting, and maybe the story is a little bit on the not so good side, I still love that game. I'm still getting immersed into the game. I don't care what I think as a grown up. I still a kid inside. So yeah.
One thing I really do appreciate about remakes of games and modern remakes of games, or you know, if it's like an emulator version of it, save points.
Yeah,
that's something I do very much appreciate about modern game systems. That, you know, Dizzy, to use an example that I mentioned earlier, there was a room, there was a screen, a couple of like two screens across, I think it was, in Dizzy, where there was like two clouds across a kind of chasm, and if you walked across the middle of the clouds, the clouds would disappear and you could never cross that chasm ever again.
Oh.
And you could do that wrong at the start of the game. You could do that, and the last time you had to walk across those clouds, and you just had to jump across the gap every single time. And if you walked across it, you basically could not finish that game on that playthrough. And you could be playing that for 2 minutes. You could have been playing it for 2.5 hours. And if you got it wrong, it was gone. And damn, I wish I'd had save points before that a few times, I tell you.
Yeah, or save states, like in modern...
save states, yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I asked the Oliver Twins about that. I actually met the Oliver Twins a couple of years ago at Develop Brighton conference. I said, why did you do that? They just went, well, people just had to play well, didn't they? Like,
okay.
All right, yeah, I suppose true. Yeah, fair enough, all right.
Yeah.
Lovely guys, by the way, the Oliver Twins. Very nice people. Well, the time I met them, they were very nice anyway.
Yeah. Also, I'm a huge fan of love of details. So if a developer does something which has nothing to do with the mechanics, nothing to do with the story, but it's there anyway. So, for example, if you take a health pack or something in a shooter, you run over it and you are healed. But the developer could also do some kind of first person animation where you pick up, where you lean down, pick the medipack up and wrap a bandage around your wrist or something like that. I think Far Cry 2 was the first who really got that right. So I like that, but I also like maybe in some strategic game where you have a lot of different units and a lot of modifiers for this unit, maybe some stats and stuff like that. So I don't know, in like Hearts of Iron, Crusader King, Civilization and stuff like that. I really like when a developer has the time and resources and money to put love into detail that you don't see on the first go through, but maybe on the second or third. Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I think these things bring a world to life, and now that can be, you could be working on various different versions of immersion there. But for me, I think a lot of that brings out that sense that the place that you're engaged with is real and is worth your brain investing energy into.
Yeah, right.
There was a bit very early on in Aliens vs Predator, the 2010 version, which I worked on, where you pull open this door and there's a person on the floor in front of you and a chest burster has come out. And it's Aliens game, so of course got chest bursters, and there's and you kind of got this. There's a blip on your motion sensor, boop, 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 like in the Aliens film, and there's a trail of blood across the floor. And if you turn to the right just after you walked in through the door, there's a little flap, an air vent flap, and it goes ding, 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 as if the facehugger has just run through it.
Yeah, right.
I bet that probably 1 in 1,000 people saw that, but we really tried very hard on that game to put a lot of little details into the world that if you were looking for it, if you were spending a bit of time going around, or you were looking in the right direction at the right time, the world felt alive. It felt like it was coming to life because of those details.
Yeah.
Another great game for that was Mickey's Castle of Illusion, a completely different kind of game, but Mickey Mouse's Castle of Illusion on the Mega Drive. So many beautiful details in the animation and just the world setting there. It really felt like you could clearly tell the animation team, particularly on this, and the art team, had really spent a lot of time doing something quite special with that, and just the feeling of that whole game was just full of love for the work that they've created, and it makes you feel like you want to be part of it. And for me, like I say, this is kind of that kind of social immersion. That's that sense of like, I want to be in this place. I want to connect with this place.
Yeah, right. I think Metro Exodus also did a great job, because it points the player in one direction, but if you take your time to go in the other direction, you have a lot of stories that NPCs tell you. You can go to a radio and tune the radio and find out about missions and NPCs you left in the past. You had contact with 2 levels before and stuff like that. I really love that. Yeah,
and the developers love it when we have the time to do this. We don't often have the time to do this. This is not through lack of will. This is through lack of money most of the time. Yeah, we have to release the game or our studio folds.
yeah, it's a shame. So
business.
So now we are coming to a part where more negative points than positive modifiers. AI, I talked about AI. I think Half-Life is a good example, because when I play Half-Life 1 and 2, I have the feeling to play against enemies, not against some brain-dead zombies. The soldiers talk to each other. They move. They try to flank you. They throw grenades and try to push you from different sides. They retreat and regroup and stuff like that. And you can see that, but you also can hear that. On the opposite scale of that is Call of Duty. As you said, in Call of Duty, the enemies come up, take cover, and they try to look around the cover. And that's the time where you have to click heads. And that's really boring and gets me every time out of the game, because I don't have the feeling that the developer takes my ability to flank and create a tactic or create some obstacle for the enemy to move around so I can take the kill or can take the shot. And this gets me really angry. Also, cheating AI. That's more often in strategy games, I think. So you get a set of resources, and the AI gets the same set of resources, and the AI is not good enough to be a counterpart for you. So the AI starts to cheat to be a counterpart for you, and that really takes me off. I know the AI has I don't know, one mind, but he produces so many units that one mind can't sustain. So I know he's cheating, or the AI is cheating, and that takes me out of the immersion very quickly.
Yeah, and it depends on the kind of experience the person's trying to create here. I mean, to mention the kind of the Call of Duty one, to respond to that one for a second. Clearly there's a lot of people who do like that because it's an incredibly successful franchise. So, and this is also something I was mentioning earlier, like different games for different people. Some people would like playing and they find it very satisfying to play against stupid enemies. Cool. Other people will want to have the Sniper Elite games, I think, are an interesting example of this. That there's Sniper Elite is by Rebellion, and you play a sniper shooting stuff, and it's most kind of just give me a game kind of level. You point the gun at someone's head, you pull the trigger, and if it was on the head explodes.
But you get a cool X-ray animation, right?
You get a cool X-ray animation, yeah. But if you play it at like the kind of like professional sniper level, the wind speed, the distance that it drops at, the curvature of the earth, all kinds of, it's incredibly detailed simulation to the point where I don't want to play that. But there are uber fans of Sniper Elite games who absolutely fucking love the realism of that simulation. And it's just different stuff for different people. It depends what you're looking for.
Yeah, right.
I have to say, with the cheating side of things, though, I kind of know what you mean. There's something we use in a lot of racing games called rubber banding, which is essentially, you know, it's because it's fun to be ahead, but it's not fun to be this far ahead. It's fun to be this far ahead, but it's not perhaps so much fun to be this far ahead. So you kind of have this rubber banding of both the skill of driving of the AI, but also the speed of driving, the grip of the driving, the AI, so that you kind of make an always fun experience. And you see this in Burnout Paradise really clearly. Like you'll have them fairly close by. You might have a good advantage for most of it, but in the last straight, they're catching up on you. But we make them really stupid in the last 100 meters, so that there's a strong possibility that, you know, if there's a fairly clear road, they're still going to win. But if there's not a clear road, they might not dodge properly, so they're going to have a smash. And then it's going to be really exciting because you have to try and steer around them. Then you really feel like you fought for that win because of the rubber banding. Is it cheating? Is it just fun? If you get it right, it's really fun. If you get it wrong, it's fucking annoying. And as a person who did beat F-Zero on the Super Nintendo on Grandmaster level, that is a game that cheated like fuck. You know, the enemies in that game just, you know, the slightest, tiniest error, you could have been driving the best race ever, and you know your top speed of your car was better than the top speed of the other car, and they would be on you in a second and past you. Yeah, that was an impossibly hard game because the enemies were they were super powered at that point, to the point where it was cheating. So it can be done really well, and it can be cheating can be a really important part of making a good, compelling gameplay experience, but it's very hard for developers to judge to be perfect for everybody.
Yeah, I guess.
I understand why it's made, but it's difficult to get right.
Yeah. The last two things are obviously bugs, and I'm not talking about 3D model clipping through some other 3D model. I'm talking. Yeah, right. I'm talking about essential game breaking bugs that are there, and sometimes, you know, the developer know that the bugs are there, but is more invested in creating a new, I don't know, skin to sell or stuff like that than to fix the bugs. So it's a little bit of both. But if there are many bugs, I try to work around the first 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 times, but then I completely give up and I don't care anymore because my rest lifetime is too important for me.
Yeah, I mean, no developer wants to release a game that doesn't work. That's just the simple fact of that. That's not why we make games. Most people aren't, actually, to be honest, 100% of games developers are not in games for the money. That is not why we make video games. We do not get rich making video games. I've been making video games for over 20 years now. I'm not a rich person. I don't know any, actually no, I probably know a tiny handful of rich people making video games. And it is a tiny handful. And they got there because they were lucky. They were there at the right time in the right place, and they either made something particularly good, or they just made something that was decent for the time. That you look back on and kind of go, yeah, there's lots of better things made since then, but they just did it first, or they just hit a zeitgeist. You don't get into games to make money. You get into games because you love making games and you love playing games, and you want to make games that you would love to play. We don't like leaving bugs in our games, but there's usually a reason why it's there. Sometimes it's just like, if we fix this, we will break everything else. There was some stuff in Fragments of Him on the Xbox that we would have liked to have fixed, but to be honest, at the time, we couldn't push through the Xbox certification system to get it fixed. We didn't have the time or the money as a studio to fix it, because we sold a reasonable number of copies, but not a lot of copies, and the studio needed to move on to the next project. And they weren't like game-breaking bugs, but they were like visual things. Was like, yeah, this scene's a lot darker than it should have been, and so that makes it a bit weirder to play. It didn't quite hit the atmosphere. PlayStation version, I think, was the best one. Actually, the Steam version is very good at fragments of it as well. And then it also got to the point that the Unity engine had moved on so much that by the time we actually had the time and the willpower and the ability to go back and fix it, we couldn't open the file anymore because the Unity engine was so there's a lot of reasons why bugs end up in stuff, and there's a lot of reasons why the developers still actively working on a game might not be actively fixing that bug, and it's a difficult thing. And frankly, like I say, there's no developer in the world that's happy that there's a bug in their game.
Yeah, right.
But we also know that players don't like there's bugs in their game either, because they're very invested in it.
Yeah.
It's tricky things.
Yeah.
It's complex business making games.
Of course. The last is I think you can summarize it as spoilers, because looking at a walkthrough or looking at Let's Play takes the magic out of the game. So my imagine runs wild. I play a magic caster and found 4 different magic stuffs and stuff like that, and I'm wondering what stuffs I will find next. Looking in the walkthrough, I know there's only 1 stuff left into the game, so I immediately get pulled out of the game because there isn't any more to achieve for me. And that's not the game's fault. That's obviously my fault, but I try to not look at walkthroughs or Let's Plays, but sometimes you get stuck and you have to look something up, and it's sometimes hard to find the point where you are stuck, so you look through different
pages. Something you don't want to see.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I think with the God of War from 2018, for example, there was like destroy 51 ravens around the world, and I think I had done like everything else except finding 2 ravens, and like they are somewhere in this world. And at that point, it's just like, I've had good fun with this. I just want to finish it. I don't really mind now. I just want to finish it. Other times, you sometimes get things where it's just like, yeah, I was having a lot of fun, and now I'm stuck, and it's not a difficulty setting. It's just I don't know what to do next. I just need somebody to get me to the next room, and then I'll have fun again for the next 8 hours.
Yeah,
and so they can be really useful, but as you say, I think they are generally negative for this sense of engagement with a game, whether it's the systems of the game, the narrative of the game. It definitely makes you realize you are a player engaging with a piece of software in a way that is not intended by developers. There's also that thing, like, we made Fragments of Him, which is a linear narrative game. It's an emotional journey you go on. The interactions and the feeling of you doing it, even though it's a linear game, the sense that you are doing it, you are that person walking alongside these characters through this difficult time of their life, is important to that experience. And if you watch that on a Let's Play, you will see the entire story, but I don't think you will feel the entire story. But I don't think you'll buy the game because you've seen the entire story.
Yeah. Right.
So particularly for so-called walking simulator games, I think Let's Plays are a highly problematic part of the industry.
Yeah.
Because they basically stop a person playing a game. They stop us being able to sell it. And essentially, the business of walking simulators just doesn't really exist anymore. The business model isn't there anymore because Let's Plays have just kind of destroyed them, which I think is a real shame, because I really like a really well-made kind of walking simulator. I love the peacefulness of walking through.
Was it Firewatch?
Yeah, Firewatch. Yeah, lovely one. Really, really just superb. Dear Esther is another fantastic one. Gone Home is another fantastic one. But a lot of these are a few years ago, and even then Firewatch was significantly more complicated than a classic walking simulator. actually your viewers will be able to see the GDC talks about the narrative systems, the dialogue systems in Firewatch. If they want to understand how complicated it is to make a video game, even as simple a video game as Firewatch, look up the GDC talks about Firewatch and their dialogue system. It's just amazing what they were doing there. But yeah, again, you know, if somebody watches the whole video of that, are they going to be buying that game? And that developer deserves support. It's a really beautiful story, and it's a beautiful game. And it's as a person who is related to people with immunocompromised issues in their life, the story of a man who has run away from watching his partner slowly die to instead be a person who stands there in a watchtower looking out over forests, watching for something bad to happen, waiting for something bad to happen. It's a powerful story. This sense of he's run away to something which is kind of exactly the same as what was happening at home, and he needs to deal with that. He needs to find a way to emotionally process that in the wilds. It's a really powerful story, and I don't think that's the same as you watch it on a Let's Play, and the developers deserve support for making something like that. So
yeah,
they are breaking things, but they break some games more than others.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. So if there are any questions in the chat, please shoot. I don't see any at the moment. So at chat, if you have any questions, feel free. And
we initially said, oh, what do you reckon? 1 hour, maybe hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours later. I think we've drilled this through people now. I think people are just like, please stop talking. I want to stop the stream.
I'm sorry.
Well, I hope you folks have enjoyed watching us. Yes.
Yeah, I hope to. I had a lot of fun, and it was very informative. So thank you for being here and talking with me about my favorite games. I really, really like that. And to be honest, I think about immersion so often. I don't know. I think it's the questions about immersion, what it is, how it functions, will be with me all my life. I think there's a lot to learn about it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and I hope the paper I wrote in this conversation today has made people think in a slightly more detailed way about it, and try to understand when you say I found that game really immersive, what did you mean there? What were you what actually grabbed you with that? What better way of expressing it? Because I think that makes us more intelligent consumers, and I think intelligent consumers and informed consumers can actually make us better audiences, which encourage developers to make better games. And because players are part of the games industry, we need you out there appreciating, enjoying, experiencing the things that we create, so that we create better stuff for you, and we have this healthy symbiotic relationship. It's not just supposed to be you give us money, we give you thing. It's supposed to be, like I say, we make games because we love the games industry. We don't do this to get rich. We're here to have fun, and we're here to help you have fun or have the experience that we want. I think fun is a very dangerous word in games. Yeah. Engagement is a better word, because I was absolutely fucking terrified playing Project Zero, also known as Fatal Frame, this Japanese ghost game. Yeah. Terrified the hell out of me. Did I have fun? Not at all. Was it a really cool experience? Hell yes, it was. So fun's not the right word for games, but we're here to make great experiences for you. I think people who are informed consumers and think intelligently about the stuff we're making, it makes our lives more fun to make games for you, and we hope that it helps you appreciate the craft of what we're creating more, and everybody has a good time. That's the goal with it.
Absolutely. And I hope we in the future talks can talk more detailed about immersion. So thank you for that. Blowfish says another tool in mind is limiting the view of the player, but the world around him still emerges. NPCs do their stuff anyway. Yeah, for example, on the C64 there was Paradroid. Yeah, where the little robots go their ways and do stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. Also, field of view is a huge thing that we use. Camera, there's just the control of the camera, what the player can see and what the player can't see, is what was it? Camera, controls, and the other one, character. Yeah, the three things you have to get right in a video game: camera, controls, and character. If your characters are interesting, you've probably got a good start. If your controls feel responsive, they react in a compelling, interesting way, it's engaging, it feels rewarding to do things, you're probably on a good track. And if your camera works properly, oh yes, your the perspective you have and making the camera work properly. So that can be the field of view. So, for example, in a racing game, typically if you've got like a boost function in a racing game, we'll often if we want it to feel really empowering, we'll pull the camera backwards so you can see more what you're doing, so you're less likely to crash. If we want it to feel more dangerous, we'll narrow the camera in so you can see less, and so it becomes more dangerous and more exciting to use the thing. The way that we use the camera, the way we control what you can see, really changes the emotional experience a person is having and how they engage with the world around them. So yeah, great comment. Thank you. Really interesting.
Okay, so I think that's it after nearly 3 hours. I hope you all enjoyed it. I thank you for participating in this talk. And yeah, I guess I see you on Friday because we are playing XCOM again. And I have a lot of fun and a lot of immersion then. So
thank you, everybody. Check out the paper. You had the link earlier in the chat.
Yeah, I'll post it again.
Oh, cool. Yeah, lovely. Check out the paper if you're interested in this topic. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation tonight. Enjoy XCOM on Friday. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Cheers, everybody.
Bye. Okay, let's